Joining us now is Chris Poisson. He went to school with the suspect from the New Orleans attack. Chris, thank you for being with us. Just tell us a little bit about your experience with Shamsud-Din. You called him Sham in middle school and high school, is that right?
Right, yeah. Shamsud-Din, his friends called him Sham.
Okay, so you went to middle school and high school with him. When he went off to the Army, you went off to the Air Force, and I know you kind of lost touch, but then you'd gotten back in touch a few years ago on social media. Tell us first what he was like in middle school and high school.
Back then, he was really reserved. He kept to himself. He didn't say too much. He was very smart, very good in school. He wasn't like a troublemaker or anything like that. He was just he was the model student, really. We met in 8th grade, and then we just happened to move to the same town in 9th grade, went to the same high school. So our friendship just continued on until high school, until he joined the Army, and like you said, I joined the Air Force.
So when you touched base with him a few years back on social media, I think it was 5 or so years ago, and got back in touch with him, what were those exchanges like, and had he changed?
Well, yeah, we had lost touch because whenever we graduated, social media wasn't a thing yet. So whenever Facebook came along, we reconnected, and then we kept in touch for several years, actually, through Facebook, just messaging back and forth, just checking on one another. And then up until the last, few times I had spoke with him, he had become really, enthralled in his faith, and pretty much every conversation we had or post that he was making at that time, in some way, shape, or form, it all, resorted back to his Muslim faith.
Okay, so he talked a lot about Islam. Did you get the sense he was radicalized? Or I understand you are a Christian and you were talking with him about religion. Were you having, respectful exchanges?
It was very respectful, and it wasn't anything like he was upset or mad at anybody. Every post and every conversation I ever had with him, he was never mad at anything. He never talked about overthrowing the government or being mad at a particular race or religion or anything like that. He was always very respectful and very positive. His message that I got from him after every conversation was that he was very positive. And it's just that what happened yesterday just came by complete surprise. I never would have seen this coming.
Yeah, you were shocked. And we've learned from our reporting that I think since about that time you would have re-engaged with him on social media. He has been suffering financial problems. He has obviously his family, his place in his family has certainly fallen apart. Did you talk to him about any of that?
No, we didn't get that deep into it. Whenever we had messaged each other back and forth, it was just more so checking on one another. Because like I said, we met in middle school back in 1996.
Yeah.
And so whenever we did talk, it was just, how are you doing? How are things, on your neck in your neck of the woods, and just, keeping it pretty superficial. We never got into anything really deep, with family issues or anything like that. So I didn't know we had any of that stuff going on, until the news report started coming out after the fact, since yesterday.
So, I mean, you were shocked by this, and you also have an interesting perspective because you have a military background. You served in an anti-terrorism unit. He served during this period of time where obviously we see the threats that the U.S. was confronting after 9/11, and then seeing him then say that he is swearing allegiance to ISIS. What do you think of that?
Complete disbelief, utter shock. One of our classmates actually messaged me yesterday morning and asked me if I had seen the news, because that's when they had identified Sham in the attacks, and I told him I don't believe that. That's probably just false reporting, a mistaken identity. And the more I looked into it, more credible reports started coming in, and it was him. And he never gave any tips or clues to me personally whenever I was speaking with him that he was on the verge of doing something like this. It's just tragic, and I never saw this coming.
What questions do you have about how he made this change and went from the person that you knew to the person who committed this horrible act?
Well, the questions that I have really is just more so from the reports that you guys have been putting out there since the attacks. I've learned, which while I was on hold, that he's acted alone. I didn't know that was a thing until just recently, and I learned that he had bomb making materials or bombs inside of his vehicle. And the thing that I don't understand is if he went through all the problem or all the if he went through all the trouble to have the bombs made, put them in his vehicle, load them up, and drive to New Orleans, why would he use his vehicle as a weapon and not even attempt to place the bombs or set them off or whatever? It's almost as if he didn't want to use them. I don't know. I'm not in his head, so I can't speak for him. It just, a lot of it just doesn't make sense to me. It's hard to wrap my head around it.
Yeah, as we understand it at this point, it may have been that police confronted him before he carried out the totality of the attack that he had planned. But again, Chris, there's so much we don't know. You have questions, we have questions. The police are tracking those down. FBI is tracking those down. Chris, thanks for being with us. I can't imagine what it's like to be in your position, but we appreciate you speaking with us.